Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. There could be a new condo developed at Roseland Golf Course. It's one out of 4 locations the city has identified for housing opportunities. Plus, Windsor police are adding more resources to tackle the growing problem of vehicle thefts in our city. We tell you what the top 3 most stolen vehicles in Windsor are and what has to be one of the most awkward intersections in Windsor is being moved in what will be an $18 million project the city is saying will require the public to have patience. Windsor City Council has selected 4 locations it would like to see housing built on, and one of those is shaping up to be somewhat controversial. The CBC's Dawson Chen has more.
Of course, these are going to be, fair market sales. We're not giving away the land.
Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkins is hoping developers will be eager to deal now that the city has made it clear there's municipal land that can be bought for condo development. As part of efforts to address housing needs, the mayor announced on Friday that 4 underutilized city properties have been identified for potential sale and housing development. They include a former high school site, 2 downtown parking lots, and the clubhouse area of Roseland Golf and Curling Club.
We are presenting 4 city properties that are at or near shovel-ready status. We are launching a portal to connect with developers for these areas that are prime for new builds that will help achieve housing targets in support of the city, province, and country.
The public school board closed W.D. Lowe High School in 2000. The city acquired the Giles Boulevard property last year for $1.6 million. Also now on the development market are the city-owned parking lot on Pelissier Street, just south of Wyandotte Street West, and the city-owned parking lot on Cairn Avenue, just north of University Avenue West. But the property at Roseland Golf and Curling Club has the clearest plans. While the golf course will remain intact, the city has already asked an architectural firm to envision a 38-unit condo complex replacing the clubhouse and parking lot. A public input session on the concept is planned for March 7th, but the ward's councillor feels there hasn't been sufficient community consultation.
What the city's telling you is this is what we're going to do. If you don't like it, too bad. This is what we're going to do. Tell us how we can improve it. That's not public consultation. Moreover, when you're looking at these 38 units, it's not going to be affordable housing. It's not even going to be attainable housing. Off the top of my head, you're probably thinking a unit's going to cost about $700,000 plus.
Dawson Chen, CBC News, Windsor.
The Windsor Police Service is adding 2 more officers to its auto theft unit. They made that announcement today, sharing the ways these vehicles often get stolen.
Anything from people leaving their vehicles unlocked with key fobs in them instead of taking them with them when they're locked. That's crimes of opportunity. They're also using electronic devices now, doing relay thefts, as well as devices now where they can actually plug into certain ports in the vehicle, which gain access to the data and not only allow them to access the vehicle, but actually start it and drive away with it.
Windsor police are able to add more officers through a provincial grant. Police received $900,000 over the next 3 years, which means 3 officers will now make up the auto theft unit. Windsor police also providing some updated numbers today. Last year, it says there were 774 stolen vehicles or attempted vehicle thefts locally. That's up by 7.4% compared to the previous year. Windsor police say the top 3 vehicles targeted in Windsor are Ford F-150s, Dodge Rams, and Lexus 350s. Police say there's no specific area in the city where these thefts happen most, but it's occurring frequently in vehicle storage lots, residential driveways, and parking lots. This auto theft unit will also partner with car dealerships, nonprofits, and other police agencies to help prevent and investigate auto thefts. It's arguably one of the worst intersections in this city, that strange crisscross by Howard Avenue and South Cameron. But the city has plans to fix it. They're undertaking an $18 million plan to realign it, to make things flow more smoothly throughout the area. The CBC's Jacob Barker has more.
The wait can be excruciating. Getting onto Howard Road from South Cameron Boulevard is no fun, and it can be tricky at times. For residents who live near the intersection, it's a pain.
It's really congested, really bad. It's just ridiculous.
There's the left turn, then there's the railroad tracks, a stoplight, the entrance and exit to the mall's parking lot, and a stop sign where Howard forks away from Division. Confusing, to say the least.
I try and avoid it when I can. I don't like to go down that street because, you'll be stuck there for half an hour sometimes. And it's just crazy. It's frustrating.
The chaos creates traffic backups, poor sightlines, and inadequate transportation links, according to the city, and it forces traffic into the residential area, tucked away behind the commercial district.
People are starting to use this through and are speeding through the Kenilworth to go out this exit instead of that. So the traffic has picked up here terribly.
But a large project is about to shake up in the area to seal this part of the intersection off and move the main intersection away from South Cameron.
This project is going to aim to realign the roadways so that it almost becomes one intersection, one main intersection, and then your separate entrance to the mall.
The new main intersection will be an extension of Sydney, which will be built through here to Howard.
At that point, Howard and South Cameron will join in together, but there won't be that little jog in the road that used to be there where you head over the tracks and you turn left onto Howard. That's going to disappear.
Well, the idea of making changes in this area is nothing new. In fact, they originally came up in an environmental assessment done by the city in 2003, and the Howard South Cameron project was identified as a priority in the 2011 budget process. McGuire is asking residents for patience.
I'm happy because there should be done something. It's not proper way there.
McGuire says the $18 million project will start in early summer, and they hope to be finished before the Christmas rush. Jacob Barker, CBC News, Windsor.
Nearly 600 workers at Green Shield here in Windsor hit the picket lines early this morning. The company handles health insurance for local companies like the City of Windsor, Stellantis, Ford, and Caesars Windsor, along with other clients across the country. Unifor Local 240 says their 3-year contract ended at midnight yesterday. Talks have been ongoing since the middle of January. The union says it's important to keep the jobs here in Windsor. Right now, the Anchor Drive location sees workers alternate between shifts with 2 days in office and the rest at home remotely. Green Shield has not responded to our request for comment. A Chatham-Kent man has been charged after police say he deliberately turned the traffic lights off at an intersection. It happened on January 12th around 8:40 in the morning on Dufferin Avenue in Wallaceburg. Yesterday, the accused eventually turned himself in. Police say an electronic box attached to a traffic light pole was broken into, and the lights were then turned off at a neighboring intersection. Police say it's unclear what the man's motivations were. He's now been charged with mischief endangering life. The agency that regulates liquor sales in this province ordered an Ontario bar to record the name and address of everyone buying beer and wine for takeout. When CBC News started investigating why, the regulator did a complete 180. Our senior reporter covering Queen's Park, Mike Crawley, has the story.
This is Bossa Nova, a licensed bar in Toronto's West End that functions mainly as a bottle shop. Its shelves are lined with artisanal wine and small batch craft beer, all products that you can't find at the LCBO.
We just wanted to do something that was fun. We wanted to do something that was different from what other places are doing. This is our passion for both of us.
Do you have anything light? The bulk of its business is takeout. But before a customer actually pays for their wine or beer to take home, the staff are now making this request.
And if I can also get you, please, to write down your name and address.
Why? The reason? Bossa Nova received this notice from Ontario's alcohol regulator, the AGCO. It threatens to impose fines or revoke the bar's license for not taking down the names, addresses, and purchase details of every takeout customer.
Rules are rules, and if we have to do it, we're going to do it, but it's certainly affecting our business. It's certainly, our customers are unhappy. We've had customers who've refused to do it and walked out, and we're not just losing a sale then, we're losing a customer.
Ontario's restrictions on alcohol sales have generally been loosened under the Ford government. The province first allowed licensed bars and restaurants to sell booze for takeout and delivery as a pandemic emergency measure in March 2020, then permanently starting later that year.
This is a Chardonnay grown in Niagara, but aged and made in a very unique way.
The rules clearly required bars like Bossa Nova to record names and addresses of delivery customers, but it was far from clear that this applied to takeout. Then an AGCO inspector told the owners they were breaking the law.
Baffled, I guess. We don't know why this rule is on the books. We don't know what the purpose of collecting the information is for.
I'll do it. but it's weird.
This customer is wondering the same thing.
I think it's crazy. It doesn't make any sense to me, and I want to know what they're going to do with that information.
Unbeknownst to a lot of people.
After CBC News contacted the Alcohol and Gaming Commission about all this, the agency announced it was launching an immediate review of the rule and would take no further action against Bossa Nova. There was no explanation why the enforcement happened in the first place. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
First, the good news, airfares have dropped in Canada. The bad news, many added fees for things like checked bags have gone up. Some experts warn if passengers aren't careful, they may wind up paying much more than anticipated, as one Leamington family found out. Sophia Harris reports.
Fernando Chicas wanted to take his family on a long overdue trip to Vancouver. So he booked 4 non-refundable tickets with discount carrier Flair Airlines, but had to cancel when he realized he made a mistake when booking the dates.
That's not good.
The problem? Some of Flair's change and cancellation fees have more than doubled. So it would cost Chicas more to cancel than he paid for the flights. That means he gets no travel credits for forfeiting a trip his family can't take.
I was shocked. I didn't expect things to be, or the charges to be that high. I am not very happy with that.
Air Canada and WestJet have also hiked fees for checked bags on economy fares by $5. The starting price is now $35. Airlines say they charge for the extras to keep base fares lower for all passengers. Over the past year, airfares in Canada have dropped by 14%. But this expert warns some passengers may still wind up paying more than they bargained for.
It can really add up a lot if you're wanting to get meals, you want in certain seats and so on. And it's a way of the airlines making more money from us.
Another problem, travelers may find it more difficult to shop around when booking flights.
Often those add-on fees are not readily available upfront, especially when you're comparing pricing. So it can be very difficult for customers to know what they're comparing across all airlines.
In an email, Transport Canada said Canada's air carriers are responsible for making their own business decisions, including how they charge for optional services. So it's up to passengers to navigate the tricky world of added fees.
An upfront cheap cost sometimes is not the best option when it comes to spending your money.
Chicas said he has learned his lesson, but it came at the price of 4 unused airline tickets. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Vancouver.
It's March 1st, although with some of the weather we've had, it feels more like April or May, and those warm temperatures are coming back. Your weekend weather forecast coming up after the break, and Josiah Sinanen joins us for a new weekly segment. Favorite time of the week, that weekend weather forecast. Victa is here to tell us if we need the snowsuit or the sun hat.
Well, Meg, happy Friday, happy March 1st. And here's what we're looking at when it comes to some headlines from the Windsor region. We got a bit of scattered rain when it comes to right about after the show into the overnight. But by the time we start rest of our weekend, a big contributing factor to the weather will be that Gulf of Mexico wind. And that Gulf of Mexico wind coming in from the south will be giving us a lot of above seasonal temperatures, which is why we'll be seeing double digits all the way from tomorrow, all the way through to the start of your week. Now, here's what it looks like for our long-term forecast. Here's what it's telling us. Currently, we're expecting Saturday to be around a high of 12 degrees, but as we get later on to the weekend, Sunday should be looking closer to a high of 12 because of all of that warm Gulf of Mexico air that's working its way over to the Windsor region. Now, as you get later on into your week, Sunday and then into Monday, we can see that green turns into yellow because that's almost summer-like conditions. You heard it correct. Summer-like conditions is how we will be starting our week in Windsor by the time it comes to Monday. And as you get later on into the week, of course, the temperatures will start dropping back more down to spring-like conditions. Now, they do take a bit of a step aside here. Look at some daytime highs. Of course, 7 was the high for, our day today for Friday. But as you get later on to the weekend, it's almost like as if they jump double digits. Now, we're talking about that rain that happens after the show, close to around 11 o'clock. It'll still be going, and it'll still stay pretty consistent until about the start of your Saturday morning. But when your Saturday morning starts, here's another thing we can also talk about, the clearing of the clouds. Now, the clearing of the clouds is a great thing because that allows us to really experience and feel a lot of that sun that'll be coming through on Saturday. And speaking of weekend weather, when it comes to Sunday, the day of the sun, well, there'll be a bit of increased cloud cover when you do start our day, but as you get later on towards it, just a mix of sun and cloud. Generally more cloudy than the other days have been, but it will still be in double digits. Now, here's your 3 and 5 day forecast. What's showing us is going to be a very sunny Saturday after that rain passes, as well as a sunny Sunday. But Monday will be a tiny bit cloudy. Tuesday, increase of cloud cover, and the temperatures will be dropping the closer we get to Sunday. But let's not take away from that beautiful weekend that's going to be happening over Windsor. Hope you all have yourselves a great weekend. Over to you.
Well, this is Week's End with Josiah, a Friday segment where we get to chat with Josiah Sinanen about things that are happening in our community. Tonight, we're going to be hearing from nurses who are the latest to benefit from the reversal of a bill that was deemed unconstitutional. So, Josiah, can you tell us about that bill?
Yeah, for sure, Meg. So we're talking here about Bill 124. It was first introduced in 2019, and it's what's known as a wage restraint law. So it capped salary increases to 1% per year for 3 years for public sector workers, and that includes the province's nurses. So what that means, Meg, is that this bill meant that unions could not negotiate any salary changes for those 3 years. And this was initially introduced as a means to eliminate a government deficit. Now, Meg, nurses and the union that represents them have been fighting this for those 3 years, and the bill was found to be unconstitutional by Ontario's Court of Appeal on February 12th. It was then repealed on February 23rd, and we now know that nurses are among workers who will be getting a retroactive salary increase as a result. It's something that the Nurses Association, or Ontario Nurses Association rather, the union that represents nurses in this province, are considering a win. So I spoke with the member of their board of directors for Afternoon Drive today. Her name is Grace Pierius.
It's bittersweet because the damage was done. We're talking about professionals who are really educated and just brilliant people, top to bottom, that were forced to make really hard decisions because of it. And people left the profession in droves, and we're still going to be dealing with this for years and years and years. I know colleagues of mine worked across the border. They went to agencies. So while we were celebratory, it still left a really bitter taste in our mouths as a group because it shouldn't have happened.
Now, Meg, the Ford government has commented on this, saying they respect the decision of the court.
So, Josiah, what happens now?
So, Meg, all employees of the Public Health Ontario are set to receive a 5.25% pay increase to compensate for those losses, and an additional retroactive pay will be given to some groups, including nurses. Pierius told me that she believes that the win will encourage people to consider a career in public health where they may not have before. So to hear that full interview, you can look up Afternoon Drive on the CBC Listen app.
Well, thanks so much for Josiah. We love having you here on Fridays.
Thank you, and I'll see you next week.
Stay tuned. We have more news coming up after the break. Pressure mounted today on Israel after yesterday's aid convoy deaths in Gaza and accusations the crowd was fired on by Israeli troops. More than 100 people seeking food died. Hundreds more were injured. Germany today demanded Israel investigate. France called for an independent inquiry, in Saudi Arabia, South Africa, and Brazil expressed outrage. Israel says the convoy was swarmed and victims were trampled or run over. It does say some shots were fired. UN officials say the incident underlines Gaza is on the brink of famine. The U.S. today said it will begin airdropping aid into Gaza in the coming days. A day after former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney died, tributes are pouring in from current and former politicians of every stripe. Conservative leaders Pierre Poilievre described Mulroney as, quote, a brilliant conversationalist and a wonderful storyteller. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh praised Mulroney for making Quebecers feel like they belonged in Canada. And Prime Minister Justin Trudeau also paid tribute to Mulroney, who became leader of the Progressive Conservatives in 1983.
There are many, many people across the country tonight who are reeling and feeling a deep absence. He was committed to this country, loved it with all his heart, and served it for many, many years in many different ways.
During his 9 years as Prime Minister, Mulroney ushered in the 1988 Canada-U.S. Free Trade Agreement and introduced the GST. He was also a champion for the environment and an outspoken critic of apartheid in South Africa. Mulroney was known for forging close ties with political leaders across Canada and in the United States. The flag atop the Peace Tower is now flying at half-mast. A state funeral will be held later this month. Mulroney died yesterday with his family by his side. He was 84. There's growing concern over an increase in measles cases across parts of the country. The 2-month tally is just shy of the dozen cases reported for all of 2023, and it's happening amid worry over global outbreaks just ahead of the busy March break travel season. Lauren Pelly has the latest.
A warning in Quebec after an unexplained case of measles.
We think that it's a beginning of a transmission inside the community.
Laval health officials say an unvaccinated individual somehow caught the virus, even though they hadn't traveled. They went on to visit a school, store, and 2 medical sites, all while highly contagious.
We are kind of worried about the evolution of measles inside our community.
Those fears follow reports of a man in his 30s living north of Toronto who also caught the virus but doesn't know how.
The unique thing about this case, and rather unfortunate thing, is that this case does not have any travel history or any history of exposure.
He had 2 doses of the measles vaccine and only mild illness.
We do know that people who are vaccinated can get a mild form of measles, and we think that they're much less likely to transmit it onwards. So that's certainly good news here.
There are only a handful of measles cases in Canada right now, but healthcare teams are bracing for more infections as global travel heats up.
South of the border, 35 cases in total have been identified across more than a dozen states, including an outbreak in Florida, a hotspot for March break vacations. This Montreal pediatric infectious disease specialist says high vaccination rates in Canada should keep the disease at bay, but
there can be certain communities or pockets of areas where the coverage rates are not high enough to stop secondary transmission.
Canada's top doctor told us Canadians should make sure their measles vaccinations are up to date.
If in doubt, I think one dose, getting a dose of vaccine prior to travel would be an important consideration.
And multiple experts agreed curbing the spread of measles is crucial given the risks. It can lead to serious complications, including blindness, brain swelling, pneumonia, even death. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
Next week will be busy for a famous auction house in the UK. Christie's Auction House will feature works from prominent artists. Celebrated works by David Hockney and Francis Bacon are each expected to sell for tens of millions of dollars at the auction in London. Francis Bacon's landscape near Malabada commemorates his lover who died in 1962. This marks the first time the painting has been offered at auction since 1985. A work by David Hockney is also expected to fetch tens of millions. Called California, the piece has not been seen in public for more than 40 years. Several other works are up for auction, and as you can imagine, they're not expected to go for pocket change. Well, that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. You can also download the CBC News app for stories that matter most to you. Thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you back here next week.